The House will be in order, and the prayer will be offered by guest chaplain, Reverend Christopher Legg of the South Spring Baptist Church, Tyler, Texas.
Come, let us reason together. Please pray with me. O Lord, King of kings, Abba, Father, and friend, help me to remember that every prayer is before you, the creator of all things and the lover of our souls. Whether we acknowledge you or not, guard us and guide us. Be our vision and our wisdom, and protect us from our own. Search us, know us, try us, and reveal us. See if there be any grievous way in us, and lead us in the way everlasting. Forgive us our pride, our lies, lack of appreciation for your truth and your love. We know you are doing a new thing. We see it springing up. Make known to us the path of life. Help us experience the full joy of your presence and the eternal pleasures at your right hand. We ask all of this according to the sanctifying work of your Spirit, for obedience to your Son and the sprinkling of his blood, and according to your perfect knowledge. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Collins.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without objection, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Moran, is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor a devoted servant of the Lord and Savior, my pastor and friend, Chris Legg of South Spring Baptist Church in Tyler, Texas. I have known Pastor Legg now for almost a decade. He is a dedicated, authentic, and humble shepherd of the flock entrusted to him, and he is one of the most insightful teachers of Scripture I have ever encountered. Every Sunday through his teaching, I am challenged to more closely align my heart and my actions with the righteousness of the living God. Committed to discipleship, Pastor Legg understands that we are all ministers of the gospel, but he also understands that we are all broken people in need of a Savior. And if we doubt that, he simply reminds us to look in the mirror. Whether it is from the pulpit at South Spring, at Aletheia Family Counseling Center, behind the microphone during his Reconstructed Faith podcast, or simply engaging with everyone he meets, Pastor Legg does his best to point this lost world to a Savior who loves us each unconditionally and who came to bring us eternal life and life more abundantly. It is my great honor to sponsor Pastor Legg, husband to Ginger, father to 5, and friend to all, as guest chaplain to deliver the opening prayer before the United States House of Representatives. On behalf of East Texas, thank you, Chris and Ginger, for your lifetime of dedication to the gospel. I yield back.
The chair will entertain up to 5 further requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm immensely grateful to call Debbie Lesko not only a colleague, but also a genuine friend. She's one of the kindest and most forgiving people I've ever met in my life. And I can attest to that personally because she forgave me in a very big way. She's built a reputation as a rock-ribbed conservative champion. From her time in the Arizona State Legislature to her service here within the People's House, she never faltered in her work to protect the values and God-given freedoms of her constituents and the American people. Her friendship and collegiality will be sorely missed as we enter into a new Congress. But I know that wherever she goes, she'll continue to leave a positive, indelible mark with her work and passion. God bless you, Debbie, and may it continue to bless your family as you turn the page and enter a new chapter in your life.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the career of a titan of Western New York's media landscape, Don Postles, who is retiring at the end of this month. Don's career is marked by a strong commitment to journalistic integrity, pursuit of the truth, and service to the public. After tenures with Channel 2 and Channel 7, in 1993, he joined Channel 4 as a reporter and rose to become the station's lead co-anchor alongside his colleague, Jackie Walker. Buffalonians have come to trust Don Postal's voice as one of honesty and integrity, guiding us through our highest of highs and lowest of lows. Whether it was our Buffalo Bills and Sabres bringing home a victory or a dangerous blizzard bearing down on the region, Don Postal's dedication to keeping folks informed has never wavered. His dedication and hard work leave behind an inspiring example for the next generation of journalists to follow. On behalf of the residents of Buffalo and all of our Western New York community, thank you, Don. Enjoy your hard-earned retirement. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise before you today to recognize, quote, a date which will live in infamy, end quotes. The words President Franklin Roosevelt used in this very chamber following the attack on Pearl Harbor. On December 7th, 1941, our great nation was suddenly attacked by the Imperial Japanese Navy, leading to the death of 2,043 American service members and civilians. 83 years later, we remember these brave souls who lost their lives that day defending our very freedoms. On August 23, 1994, Congress created the National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day to honor the lives lost each year. We once again recognize and remember every man and woman who laid down their life for the United States that day. We are forever indebted to their sacrifices. In the time of war, our great nation was able to preserve. Let this day be a reminder to us that our freedom should never be taken for granted. God bless those who lost their lives that day, and God bless America. That's my time.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, government is at its best when it helps those in need. That's the story of Collegeville resident Joe Idle. Joe was born with a rare heart condition that meant only half of his heart worked properly. For years, he endured surgery after surgery. And still at 37, Joe suffered heart and liver failure. A transplant was his only hope. The family's nationwide search began, and in 2020 at Vanderbilt University Hospital, Joe became the first person with Down syndrome to receive a combined heart-liver transplant. What made this possible? Medicare. Medicare saves lives. It saved Joe, and without it, thousands of Americans would not have the chance at the life they deserve. Through it all, Joe's courageous and contagious spirit never wavered. His story is not the story of sorrow, but of joy and enduring strength, and of the power of community. From his parents, Craig and Peg, to doctors, nurses, family, friends, and coworkers, Joe had love and support. May the Idle story be the story for many others in acute need. Now Joe is competing again with joy in the Special Olympics, a remarkable feat for a remarkable young man. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute. Extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the retirement of one of Georgia's finest law enforcement officers. Jackson County Sheriff Janice Mangum will be leaving the force at the end of this year, marking an end to an incredible and historic 39-year career. Since 1985, Sheriff Mangum has devoted her life to protecting the innocent, keeping dangerous criminals off our streets, and serving as a leader to law enforcement officers in Jackson County and throughout Georgia. From her time as a radio operator to being elected as the second female sheriff in Georgia history, Sheriff Mangum leaves a legacy that saved countless lives and struck fear in the hearts of Georgia's criminals. She was named 2023 Georgia Sheriff of the Year and has received so many accolades and awards for her hard work and dedication that I truthfully do not have time to list them all. Know this, when there was a call to serve, she answered. On behalf of Georgia's 10th Congressional District, thank you for your commitment to Jackson County and the sacrifices you've made to keep us safe. You will truly be missed. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the 40th anniversary of the 1984 Summer Olympic Games in Los Angeles, a momentous event that redefined what the Olympics could achieve and left a lasting legacy for our nation and the world. The 1984 Games were groundbreaking, the first privately financed and most successfully financial in history. With 5.7 million tickets sold and events across 4,000 square miles of Southern California, they captivated the world and showcased LA as a global leader. More than a display of athletic excellence, the 1984 Games ushered in a new era of innovation, technology, and inclusivity, while fostering international goodwill and reminding us that sport has the power to unite where politics may divide. From this success, the LA 84 Foundation was born, ensuring that the legacy of the 1984 Olympics continues to benefit future generations. Over the past 4 decades, the foundation has supported millions of young people, built vital infrastructure, and led the national conversation on play and equity and youth development. As we look ahead to the 2028 Olympics, LA will once again welcome the world, offering a unique opportunity to harness the soft power of sport to promote peace, strengthen global relationships, and inspire future generations. Let us build on this legacy as we prepare to unite the world once again in 2028. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to address the House and ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, across our country, students continue to face uncertainty caused by the delays in the federal student aid system. Unfortunately, the Biden administration's botched rollout of the FAFSA program this past school year left students not knowing whether they would receive aid. Some students did not even know their financial aid status until after the start of the school year. Recently, I voted in favor of the FAFSA Deadline Act, which would ensure that FAFSA forms are made available by October 1st of each year, allowing students and their families and their schools the necessary time to complete, process, and receive those applications. These delays impact students both at flagship universities and at trade schools, leaving the students unsure of how they will afford the tuition in their chosen careers. It is time for the Senate to pass this legislation and give our students and their families the clarity that they need in order to return and resume their education. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to join in the celebration of the 1-year anniversary of Medicaid expansion in the state of North Carolina. As a co-chair of the State Medicaid Expansion Caucus, I'm glad nearly 600,000 North Carolinians now have access to health care. I thank the North Carolina General Assembly for doing the right thing, and for the governor and DHS secretary for selecting Eastern North Carolina to celebrate this milestone where more than 95,000 residents now have care. It's not just that. We're also celebrating the many jobs that are helping to boost Eastern North Carolina's economy. After witnessing the closure to Martin General Hospital and other struggling hospitals in the East, expansion was vital. Congress must see the value, benefits, and the fruits of our labor. With the expansion of Medicaid and the groundbreaking of the new Center of Medical Education building, both, we remain on the forefront of delivering a healthier Eastern North Carolina, and I couldn't be prouder. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Arizona seek recognition?
I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize a community leader whose service and dedication to myself and the state of Arizona are unmatched. Lisa Gray, my friend. When I got elected in Congress in 2018, Lisa was my first district director and assisted me in opening the office and did a great job. Through her time in my office, Lisa was committed to providing the best service to our constituents and playing an active role in our community. Still to this day, Lisa is an active member of our community and currently serves as the general manager of the Sun City Homeowners Association. Lisa is a leader, an advocate who fights for what she believes in. When I look back on my time in elected office, Lisa was such an important part of this journey, and I thank her for her service and commitment to our community and our country. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. I rise today to congratulate the East St. Louis Flyers football team for winning the 2024 Illinois State Championship. Under Coach Darren Suckett's leadership, the Flyers went 13-1 this season, averaging an astonishing 43 points per game while giving up an average of just 7 points per game. On November 28th, the team finished their season with a 48-28 victory over Geneva, marking East St. Louis' 11th state championship and Coach Sunkett's 5th state title with the Flyers. I want to personally congratulate each and every player, coach, and staffer who helped the Flyers achieve their goals on and off the field this season. I know that behind each win were hours of practice and preparation. Your dedication to the game of football in our local community is an inspiration. Go Flyers. I yield back.
The chair lays before the House the following enrolled bill.
H.R. 3821, an act to reauthorize the Firefighter Cancer Registry Act of 2018.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina I'll seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 1602, I call up Bill H.R. 5349, the Crucial Communism Teaching Act, and ask for immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar number 205, H.R. 5349. A bill to develop and disseminate a civic education curriculum and oral history resources regarding certain political ideologies and for the purposes.
Pursuant to the House Resolution 1602, the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee of Education and the Workforce printed in the bill is adopted, and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill as amended shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Education and the Workforce or their respective designees. After 1 hour of debate on the bill as amended, it shall be in order to consider the further amendment printed in Part A of House Report 118-791, if offered by the member designated in the report, which shall be considered read, shall be separately debatable for time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and opponent, and shall not be subject to a demand for a division of the question. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Owens, and the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Scott, will each control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Utah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks to exert additional material for H.R. 5349.
Without objection.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support H.R. 5349, the Crucial Communism Teaching Act, authored by Representative Salazar from Florida. Communism is a cancerous ideology that has a long, dark history of political suppression, persecution, and violence. There's no question about that. This ideology has led to the deaths of over 100 million men, women, and children worldwide. and tramples the human rights of over 1.5 billion people across the globe. If you think this is a thing of the past, think again. The victims of communism memorial foundations put it this way: the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, but communism didn't. 100 years after the Bolshevik Revolution, 1/5 of the world's population still lives under the single-party communist regime of China, Cuba, Laos, North Korea, and Vietnam. The freedom we enjoy is a threat to these communist regimes, and they benefit when their atrocities are covered up. So it's no surprise that foreign actors are infiltrating American educational institutions to spew propaganda and keep the horrors of communism buried. For example, the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, is using Confucius classrooms under the guise of cultural exchange centers to undermine the principles on which this nation is built. They are explicitly organized by the CCP to project soft power on American students. The strategy is straight out of the Soviet playbook. In 1960, the USSR established the People's Friendship University as a cultural and literary exchange program to indoctrinate students in developing countries like Africa, Asia, and Latin America. This blatant attempt to inject foreign ideologies into schools undermines the fundamental purpose of American education. It goes without saying we should be teaching American values in American schools. Make no mistake, every dollar that flows into American classrooms from the CCP comes with strings attached. And the most important string is the requirement that instructors censor themselves to appease Beijing. This censorship stifles academic freedom, which is the cornerstone of the American educational system. Academic freedom encourages open dialogue, the free exchange of ideas, and the pursuit of knowledge without fear of reprisal. The Confucius classrooms, however, undermine these principles by fostering an environment where educators are pressured to align with the CCP's agenda, stifling critical thinking and true intellectual exploration. Yet over 500 K-12 schools across the United States have allowed the CCP to establish itself in their halls under the guise of Confucius classrooms, which has been especially concentrated close to U.S. military bases. To make matters worse, currently 28% of Gen Z hold a favorable opinion of the term communism. 18% of Gen Z think communism is a fairer system than capitalism and deserves consideration in America. These disturbing statistics make it clear that we are in a war of ideas. President Reagan's quote is even more present. Freedom is never more than a generation away from extinction. We celebrate accountability, free markets, human rights, and good governance, while communists seeks to subvert these ideas. We must protect and nurture our own democratic values for them to continue to thrive. This is a serious problem that must be confronted, and the Crucial Communist Teaching Act is the answer. This legislation will offer states and local districts optional educational materials which they can educate high school students about the dangers of communism and how these systems are contrary to the founding principles of the freedom in the United States. This is all about preserving those founding principles, safeguarding the freedoms that have always defended or been defined in this great republic throughout its history, and educating the nation's future leaders about the true nature of this caustic ideology that is communism. With that, I urge a yes vote for the Crucial Communism Teaching Act and reserve the remainder of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman for Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as they may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise on H.R. 5349, the so-called Crucial Communist Teaching Act, Communism Teaching Act. Let me start by acknowledging that there is value in educating our students about the dangers of totalitarianism and the atrocities committed under communist regimes. But the truth is we're debating a bill that skirts around key historical lessons and only risks further politicizing education. Rather than bringing forward substantive legislation to address challenges that our children face in the classroom, Republicans want us to focus on this narrowly tailored bill that leaves out important issues that we should be discussing about communism. We should be taking action to address the actual challenges that our children are facing, like increasing legislation to increase achievement, academic achievement, increase investments in early childhood education, closing achievement gaps in our schools, tackle the mental health crisis among our youth, increasing graduation rates, making college more affordable. These are the challenges that people are actually facing. But this bill, in fact, the entire session has been silent on those issues. Furthermore, the bill fails to provide a complete and comprehensive approach to teaching students about the full history of communism. If we truly want to educate students about the dangers of extremism, we should be teaching them about all forms, not just communism, but how about fascism and other ideologies which have sought to strip people of their rights and freedoms. And even with communism, the bill neglects to mention the long history of using the label communism to inflame, scare, and pit Americans against each other. The bill remains silent when it comes to specifics, such as the discussion about the history of the House Un-American Activities Committee. Many fear that this approach will not only oversimplify this complex issue, but also distort our students' understanding of history. What is more troubling is that while we're debating this bill, Republicans are ignoring the actual efforts to invest in education and ensure that all children have the opportunity to succeed. We should be passing legislation that prioritizes their future, not creating distractions on divisive partisan messaging. So I urge my colleagues to come together to support legislation that would truly make a difference in the lives of American students. This legislation only directs an organization to create a limited curriculum on communism that public schools can adopt or not at the discretion of the local school system. Let's focus instead on policies that improve academic achievement, close achievement gaps, increase graduation rates, make higher education more affordable, issues that demand our immediate attention. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would advise my colleague that I have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close when he's prepared to close, and I've reserved the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Walberg.
Gentleman's recognized.
I thank my colleague. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of H.R. 5349, the Crucial Communism Teaching Act. And I thank my colleague from Florida, Representative Salazar, for her work on this important legislation that comes from personal experience with communism. Communism has a long and dark history of political suppression, persecution, and violence that is being whitewashed by foreign influence in American education institutions for a long time. School children should receive an accurate and comprehensive education on communist regimes and policies. Communism has led to the deaths of over 100 million victims worldwide. It has failed every time it's been tried. And sadly, polls today show that 1 in 5 millennials and 1 in 3 members of Gen Z have a positive viewpoint of communism. Wow, Mr. Speaker, that data is troubling. And solutions start with ensuring an accurate education. And what this legislation does is says local K-12 schools are local K-12 schools. The bureaucracy and the federal government is not going to put the thumb on the scale, but we are going to give the opportunity for accurate education tools to be put in place if they choose to do it. And you know, I think there are a lot of American parents that would be thrilled with the opportunity of knowing that these resources put together by people who understand the history will be there for them. And so, Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of H.R. 5349. as an initial positive step toward restoring the greatness of our country with the understanding of the evil influence of communism that is still there and invading our country at this very moment in our classrooms. I urge its passage, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. The gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Florida, the bill's sponsor, Representative Salazar.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to urge the passage of my bill, H.R. 5349, the Crucial Communism Teaching Act. My legislation will develop a curriculum on the real, brutal history of communism and provide states with the resources to implement it from K through the end of high school. This bill is crucial at this hour for the health of our nation. And why is that? Because America's youth has been brainwashed by media and academia for the last 30 years to believe that communism is good. What a travesty. What a horror. Ask my parents and my community if that is true. And I'm just going to bring you some proof. Nearly 40% of Gen Z and millennials think that the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx is better and it's more of a defense of freedom than the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson. Just picture that. Jefferson and Karl Marx. For 40% of Gen Z, Marx wins over Jefferson. What a problem we have as a country. The Declaration of Independence, as we all know, gave birth to the longest and most prosperous democracy in the world, ours, and that's why we have to preserve it through this bill. More than 1/3 of millennials approve of communism because they do not know what they're talking about or what this is all about. They don't know that communism has claimed over 100 million lives all over the world, making it the deadliest ideology known to mankind. I represent the people of the city of Miami, which is the heart of the Cuban exile community, refuge of hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans that have fled the horrors of this ideology that we would like through this bill to teach our kids not to fall into that trap. Let's just go to Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. That's a fact. It used to have the same GDP as Germany only 25 years ago. That's another fact. It has an inflation right now over 150%. The average Venezuelan has lost 15 pounds for lack of food, a country that has the largest oil reserves in the world. Something doesn't match. In the last 25 years, nearly 8 million Venezuelans have fled the country, a country that, as I said, has the largest reserves of oil and it's full of resources, natural resources. Now let's go to Nicaragua. It was the breadbasket of Central America 25 years ago. Under communist Daniel Ortega, 28,000 properties have been expropriated, and Nicaraguans now are poorer than they were in the 70s. A couple of years ago, the last presidential contenders, 7 of them were put in jail because elections for communists is a problem. Therefore, you have to stifle them, and you put your political opponents in jail. That's the easiest part because there is no accountability. Now let's go to Cuba, where my parents come from. My parents fled in the 60s. 70% of Cubans today eat only once a day. The average Cuban makes $1 a day as income. In 1960, Cuba had a per capita income close to Italy or Argentina. Hunger, being hungry, is a very powerful motivator. Thousands and thousands of Cubans, I've known some of them, throw themselves into the ocean in the Florida Straits to get to Miami, facing the sharks, facing drowning, just to escape that communist inferno, and they expose their children to that. Just picture what that means. What do you got to be living in wherever you are in Cuba in order to throw yourself into the ocean and face the sharks in the dark? Today, the average Cuban has 1 hour of electricity. They have no food, no water, no medicine, no clothes, and they're desperate to come to the United States. An island that is 90 miles away from the United States, the most powerful economy in the world, and an island that could be Taiwan, Singapore, or Taiwan, or Hong Kong, but because of communism. In China, now let's leave this hemisphere, let's go to China. In China, up to 55 million people starved to death under Mao Zedong in the Great Leap Forward. Mao is one of the most evil communist leaders, we all know, but you know that nearly half of our American kids do not even know who Mao Zedong is. In Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge murdered 1 million people. In the USSR, 10 million people were sent to freeze to death.
I'd like to leave 1 minute.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. Reserve.
Communists are in the business of power. It only takes one generation to believe their false promises, and we lose everything. So we cannot misinform our children. Knowledge is powerful. Churchill said, study history, study history. The further backward you can look, the further forward you're likely to see. Communism only leads to destruction and misery. I urge support from my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. This bill has nothing to do with politics, Democrats. It has nothing to do with political parties. It has to do to preserve the institution and what we have created as a nation. So let's teach our children about the truth. Let's do not fall into the trap, and let's start from kindergarten teaching them, and then they will be able to make a knowledgeable decision when they go to the polling booths. So I urge support from my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Let's pass H.R. 5349, and I yield back the balance of my time, which I don't think I have any. Thank you. Yield back.
Gentlewoman yields. Gentleman from Utah reserves.
Was it? Prepared to close. I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself the balance of the time.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. If this wasn't about politics, it would have also included fascism as well as communism. But while the majority pushes forward this bill that narrowly focuses on teaching some aspects of communism, we're ignoring the broader issues that affect students every day. We should be working together to improve academic achievement, close learning gaps, improve graduation rates, make college more affordable, and other important education issues. So instead of pursuing this distraction, let's focus on the real challenges that students face in the classroom today. Let's pass substantive legislation that supports our educators with the resources to provide a safe learning environment and empowers our students to succeed and prepares them for the future. So I urge my colleagues to prioritize the actual needs of the students, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself to balance my time.
Gentleman's recognized.
First of all, I want to thank my colleague from Florida. We can do a lot of good things in our country, including closing the border, taking care of inflation. If we do not teach our young people the danger of communism, we'll rot from within. So I want to thank you so much for that, for sure. Communism's long, dark history of political suppression, persecution, and violence is an established fact. As I mentioned from the start, it has led to the deaths of over 100 million victims worldwide and currently tramples the human rights of 1.5 billion people on this globe. It is troubling that so many Gen Z have no problem with communism or even embrace it. This is a result of two factors: the lack of accurate educational materials in U.S. schools and foreign actors who successfully push their propaganda. The good news is that Republicans have a solution that has a bipartisan support. H.R. 5349, the Crucial Communism Teaching Act, will support state and local efforts to educate high school students about the dangers of communism. Now, these are those systems that are contrary to the founding principles of the freedoms in the United States. Communist influence and infiltration in schools is real. Students need accurate information about how dangerous these ideologies are. By passing this bill, Congress can send a message that stands against hate, indoctrination, radicalization of America's next generation of leaders. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. All time for debate on the bill has expired. It is now in order to consider the amendment printed in the part of House Report 118-791. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
Does the gentlewoman rise as the designee of the gentleman from New Jersey? Does the gentlewoman rise as the designee of the gentleman from New Jersey?
Does the gentlewoman rise for the designee of New Jersey?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise as the designee of gentleman from New Jersey, and I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment printed in Part A of House Report number 118-791, offered by Ms. Manning of North Carolina.
Pursuant to the House Resolution 1602, the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Manning, and a member of opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment, offered by my colleague, Representative Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, ensures that the civic education curriculum in this bill covers how past and present communist and totalitarian regimes have committed grave human rights abuses and threatened democracies. Mr. Speaker, it is no secret that communist and totalitarian regimes view democracies as a threat. They have repeatedly sought to undermine democracies and threaten their stability at every turn. But these regimes also trample the rights of many of their own citizens, especially ethnic and religious minorities. As we know, the People's Republic of China has committed grave human rights abuses and, according to the State Department, continues to carry out genocide, crimes against humanity, forced labor, and other human rights violations against Uyghurs in China's western provinces. The PRC also poses an increasingly aggressive threat to Taiwan, a key democracy and a vital partner of the U.S., which shares our fundamental values. I firmly believe that it's worthwhile for students from all backgrounds to better understand these facts. This amendment broadens and expands the curriculum that would be made available to high school students to help them become more aware of history and how communist and totalitarian regimes threaten our security and values. In closing, I urge all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join me in supporting Representative Gottheimer's common sense amendment, and with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Does the gentleman reserve? What purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
I rise in opposition to the amendment, though I do not oppose.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. As was mentioned, this amendment would ensure the optional learning resources developed by the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation are periodically updated, and with a special focus on the China's human rights abuses and aggression against democratic nations. The Chinese Communist Party has egregiously and repeatedly violated human rights. They have persecuted Muslim minorities, displayed aggression toward Taiwan, and cracked down on peaceful pro-democratic protesters. In Chinese schools, they are indoctrinating their students to ignore or dismiss these human rights abuses. But they're not only content to only brainwash their own students, they're also attempting to indoctrinate American students, as I mentioned in my opening statement. American students need to know about communism and especially the evils of the Chinese Communist Party. The Gottheimer Amendment would ensure that these optional resources fully include information about China's abuses so students can get a full version of history. I support the gentleman's amendment and yield the balance of my time.
Gentleman yield. Without objection, the gentlewoman from North Carolina is recognized for the remainder of her time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to yield 3 minutes to my good friend and cousin, Representative Jamie Raskin.
Recognized.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you for yielding. I'm just becoming acquainted with the amendment in the legislation now, but it seems to me it's a very good idea to educate people on the dangers, the perils of communist totalitarianism as well as other kinds of totalitarianism, Nazi and fascist totalitarianism, the forces we defeated in the last century. And obviously there are a lot of Americans who need a primer on the dangers of communist totalitarianism. For example, the president-elect, who still seems to have a love affair with Kim Jong-un, the last remaining communist dictator on earth, who is a major threat to the human rights of people who live in North Korea. Vladimir Putin, the former head of the KGB, who described the collapse of the Soviet Union as the worst catastrophe of the 20th century, remains a severe threat to democracy and freedom all over the world. So, along with the distinguished chairman of the committee, I'm sorry that there's not an explicit recognition of Nazism and fascism here, but there's no problem with educating people about the dangers of communist totalitarianism, because there's so many people, including the president-elect, who seem not to remember the dangers of communist totalitarianism and what people like Vladimir Putin did under Soviet communism and the threat that continues to be posed. So I think the amendment makes good sense to identify the Chinese government's violent mistreatment of the Uyghurs, of people in Tibet, and continuing human rights violations that are taking place, which means we shouldn't be making alliances with communist and totalitarian oligarchs all over the world. We should be criticizing them and challenging them for the violation of human rights of people who live under their empire. America should not be aligned with the oligarchs and the fascists and the Stalinist communists all over the world. We should be aligned with the democratic movements, people who are struggling for freedom and human rights. So, I'm sorry that this was written in such a partial way, but it at least gets at part of the problem, and I hope it will be a real education to the incoming administration as well as to young people about the dangers of people like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, communists who have undermined human rights and freedom in our time. And with that, I'm happy to yield back to the very distinguished gentlelady from North Carolina.
Gentleman yields. Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the president-elect. Gentlewoman from North Carolina is recognized.
I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields back. Pursuant to the rule, the previous question is ordered on the bill and on the amendment by the gentlewoman from North Carolina. The question is on the amendment by the gentlewoman from North Carolina. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The question is on the engrossment and third reading of the bill as amended. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to develop and disseminate a civic education curriculum and oral history resources regarding certain political ideologies and for other purposes.
The question is on the passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The bill is passed. Reconsider. The ayes have it. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Can you ask for a recording, please? Ayes and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 300. No, sure. Okay. On this vote, the yeas were 328. The nays were 60. On this vote, the yeas are 327. The nays are 62. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn to meet on Monday, December 9th, 2024, when it shall convene at noon for morning hour debate and 2 p.m. for legislative business.
Without objection.
The House will come to order. The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. The House will come to order. Members, please take your conversations off the floor. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request permission to address the House for 1 minute and revise and correct my comments.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker.
The House will come to order. Please take your conversations off the floor. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor John W. Hall. John Hall is a 99-year-old and a U.S. Army veteran who was fought in both World War II and the Korean War. Hall became a prisoner of war in December of 1944 following the Battle of the Bulge. John Hall and his fellow POWs faced extremely harsh conditions in the disease-ridden POW camps with little or no food each day. He and his fellow POWs were liberated in April 2nd, 1945. John Hall earned a Bronze Star for his service in Korea, where he was wounded in combat. To this day, Hall exemplifies humility and insists that he is not a hero. But he is precisely that, Our country owes him our utmost gratitude for his courage and selfless sacrifice to defend our country and our precious freedom. We thank him for his service. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the memory of my dear friend and a true pillar of the Greensboro community, Yvonne Johnson. Few individuals have so completely embodied the spirit of their city as Yvonne did for Greensboro. A proud native, she graduated from Dudley High School and received degrees from both Bennett College and North Carolina A&T State University. It was during her college years that she became deeply involved in the civil rights movement, marching with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and participating in the historic Woolworth's sit-ins. Her relentless dedication to justice paved the way for nearly 30 years of service on the Greensboro City Council, where she made history as the first Black person elected to serve. Later, she shattered another barrier as the city's first Black mayor. Yvonne was a trailblazer, a role model, and a real leader. I will miss her, but feel privileged to have known and worked with her. Surely her memory will be a blessing for all who knew her, for she made Greensboro a better place for all of us. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Tommy Pappas.
Gentlemen will suspend. Gentlemen seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend his remarks.
That's right, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Tommy Pappas, or as he's lovingly known to the people of Columbus as Tommy, of Tommy's Diner in Franklinton. Tommy made a simple meal really feel just like a celebration. And since 1989, his warm hospitality, larger-than-life presence, as you can see from this picture, made Tommy's Diner a neighborhood institution. Today, we honor Tommy's hard work and service to the city of Columbus and all of Central Ohio. Our thoughts are with his wife, Kathy, his sons, Michael and Louie, and the entire Pappas family. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from the Virgin Islands seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to acknowledge and celebrate the first Alicia Chucky Hansen Day in the United States Virgin Islands, designated by the Virgin Islands Legislature as December 6th. From the moment Senator Hansen stepped into the Virgin Islands Legislature in 1986, she committed herself to being an advocate for Virgin Islanders and individuals from all walks of life. Our beloved Chucky was truly a force to contend with and a role model and mentor for young girls and women, and continues to hold the record for the longest-serving senator from St. Croix. Senator Hansen committed much of her time to the American Legion, supporting our territory's veterans. She was a lively radio personality, engaging with our community on a weekly basis. And let me tell you, if Chucky was for you, nobody could be against you. Senator Hansen, we remember and honor your memory today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, December 7th, marks the 83rd anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Dozens of Alabamians were killed on this tragic day, including 32 on the USS Arizona and Julius Ellsbury, who was believed to be the first Black Alabamian to die in World War II. I rise today to honor the memory of all these brave Alabamians and Americans, but I would like to specifically focus on Chief Carpenter John Arnold Austin from Warrior, Alabama. On the morning of December 7th, John was aboard the USS Oklahoma, which was the first ship to be attacked by the Japanese on Battleship Row. John and many of his shipmates found themselves trapped, but he found an escape route and is credited with saving 15 sailors that day. Unfortunately, he perished in the process. Chief Carpenter Austin was awarded the Navy Cross posthumously. His citation reads, "He gallantly gave his life in service of his country." The USS Austin, a destroyer escort, was later named in his honor. As we honor those lost, let us remember and reflect on their sacrifices and the high cost required to preserve freedom. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today marks 159 years since the ratification of the 13th Amendment on December 6, 1865, which abolished slavery and freed nearly 4 million enslaved persons, including some of my ancestors. When you look at these formerly enslaved, you see the hopes and dreams that were so written and promised in our United States Constitution. However, the path to freedom has been unevenly realized across this nation, and true freedom remains a work in progress. In fact, it still exists as the legacy of slavery and injustice endures because the 13th Amendment was incomplete. It allows for slavery to exist if a person is convicted of a crime, and this disproportionately affects Black Americans. In 2023, Black Americans were incarcerated at rates 5 times higher than white Americans. And as of 2022, white households held 6 times the wealth of Black households. If we are truly to live up to our creed as stated of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we must end these disparities as soon as possible. As we honor the progress achieved, let us recommit to building a future of justice and equality for all. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Missouri seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Bill Barnett, a remarkable public servant as he celebrates his 80th birthday. For over 2 decades as a Christian County Western District Commissioner, Bill's leadership has transformed our community, paving roads, building bridges, and modernizing services that have improved countless lives. Beyond infrastructure, Bill's faith has guided his life. A devoted member of the Nixa Church of the Nazarene, he and his wife, Glenna, embody compassion and services. Bill also supports boards and causes, from senior centers to environmental initiatives, while running a small business and cherishing his role as a family man. Bill's faith, integrity, and dedication inspire us all. Happy 80th birthday, Bill. Your legacy is a blessing to us all.
Gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, at this holiday season and other auspicious occasions, I rise to celebrate a cherished, inspiring tradition that bridges history, culture, and community, the enduring role of the town crier. In Northwest Ohio, Sylvania's town crier, Michael Lieber, embodies this vibrant legacy with distinction and flair. For nearly 3 decades, Mr. Lieber has been a living emblem of civic pride, dressed in 19th century regalia, ringing his handbell and calling out proclamations with unmatched zeal. His booming voice proclaiming, "Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay," has carried the spirit of Sylvania not just across Ohio, but across the globe, from Melbourne, Australia, to the airwaves of Good Morning America. Town criers, once vital in relaying news to illiterate publics, now serve as keepers of history and creators of joy. They infuse modern events with old world charm. Mr. Lieber's dedication highlights the best of American ingenuity and community service, connecting us to our past while celebrating the present. Let us commend Town Crier Lieber and his fellow criers for preserving this unique, joyful tradition and inspiring us to honor our shared history. Their contributions remind us all that civic pride is a timeless virtue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Lieber, I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Lots of Californians. I thought it was up to Luis. I seek unanimous consent to rest the House 1 minute and rise to my
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Okay. California's unemployment system is failing. The state owes $20 billion to the federal government because of mismanagement and rampant fraud. Small businesses are going to be left to pick up the mess. Instead of addressing the root problem, California should instead help small businesses and not shove the problem onto them. Instead, they're going to see higher unemployment insurance taxes to cover up this debt. Higher taxes on already struggling businesses in my home state. On top of the taxes, regulations, and red tape they already face. These small businesses are key to getting people back to work. They're being crushed by these policies that prioritize bureaucracy over actual solutions. When the state cannot account for many billions of dollars of unemployment as well as through the EDD, let alone the billions that are missing now for homeless issues, it needs to really get back and focus on what is important for the people of California. We have crime to solve, we have water we need to store and help with our agriculture, we have homeless problems that are still not being met, we have housing issues we need to do, and instead we get more and more of this kind of corruption. The path to recovery starts with our small businesses in California, not harming them with more taxes. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Oregon seek recognition?
I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to highlight the work that my colleagues in the Mental Health Caucus and I are doing to address America's mental health and addiction crisis. When I first took office, my home state of Oregon ranked second to last in the nation in terms of access to mental health services and dead last for the widespread prevalence of mental illness. It's why I've made this issue a top priority and took on a leadership role as co-chair of the Mental Health Caucus, where our members have introduced around 200 bills during this Congress alone to address various pieces of the mental health puzzle. Personally, I've introduced my own mental health-related bills and co-sponsored dozens more. I've held listening tours, roundtables, and town halls to hear directly from community members to understand the challenges they face and establish strong relationships with advocates and treatment professionals to ensure our solutions are guided by lived experiences. These actions have helped raise awareness and reduce the stigma around seeking care, but that is merely just the first step, and I know there is still so much more work to be done. I remain committed to reaching across the aisle and working with my colleagues in both parties to continue this work, make strides on this issue in the next Congress. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize Kendra Santiago as Ohio's 13th Congressional District Champion of the Week. Last month, while on the job, pizza delivery driver Kendra Santiago saved a man's life in Fairlawn, Ohio. While she was taking his order over the phone, Kendra became concerned about his speech patterns. And as a former nurse's aide who was also pursuing a career as an EMT, Kendra volunteered to make the delivery. When she arrived at the man's house in Fairlawn, his wife told Kendra that he was no longer breathing. Kendra sprung into action and helped stabilize the man until paramedics arrived. Kendra visited the man several times in the hospital during his recovery, extending her care and concern to her neighbor. She says she hopes that this will inspire others in our community to learn how to identify the common signs of a stroke, seizures, and other potential health risks. Ohio's 13th Congressional District is home to many champions just like Kendra, who work hard every day and don't hesitate to lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. Kendra's selfless act is a shining example of why our district is known as the birthplace of champions. Thank you again, Kendra, and I wish you all of the best of luck in your future endeavors, especially your endeavors becoming an EMT, and I hope that you continue to inspire your community, our community, just as you have inspired me and the entire country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor my dear friend, Tommy Pappas. Tommy's story is an American dream. Born in a small village in Greece, he taught himself to cook as a child. And for the last 35 years in Columbus, he owned and opened Tommy's Diner. Tommy's wasn't just a restaurant, it was a community hub. From neighbors, governors, mayors, to construction workers and judges, everyone was welcome. If your photo made it to Tommy's wall, you had made it. But Tommy didn't just celebrate the famous. He remembered every customer's name and treated everyone the same. Tommy's was one of my favorite places for breakfast. I held interviews there, and I even held my presidential inauguration ticket lottery there. Tommy's Diners was featured on the Food Network shows Diners, Dive-Ins, and Drive-Ins. His legacy will live on, Mr. Speaker. Rest in peace, Tommy, and I was lucky to call you my friend. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, to address the body for 1 minute without objection.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize the remarkable career of my very good friend, Anaheim City Council member Steve Fossil. Steve has spent his entire life giving back to the city of Anaheim. He was first elected to the City Council in 2016 and now serves as a member of the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Steve also is a strong advocate of history, and he is a founding member of the Museo in Anaheim and the Cultural Center in Anaheim. And as board secretary, he's been able to teach history to young people in Anaheim, tourists, and anybody else who wants to listen to the great story in history of the city of Anaheim. And today, as Steve leaves the Anaheim City Council, Steve, I want to recognize you for your hard work and dedication to our community. Thank you for giving back. I know you're not done, and I know we're going to hang out at more events in the years to come. Thank you very much, and Mr. Speaker, I yield.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition?
To revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize the Millington High School varsity football team for winning the Division 7 state championships last weekend. The Millington Cardinals took home their first ever state championship in football. 24-0 shutout, and capping off their undefeated season as champions. And I might add, they were the only undefeated team in the state this year. Congratulations. So congratulations to Coach Germain and the talented group of young men for their incredible accomplishment on the field. You have made Michigan's 9th district proud, and I hope you cherish this memory for the rest of your lives. Congratulations again to the Millington High School student body, and go Cardinals. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Oregon seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you.
I rise today to congratulate the University of Oregon Ducks on their 12-0 season and having the #1 ranking in college football. And congratulations to Dan Lanning, who's led this football team to the only undefeated record in college football. I also want to shout out quarterback Dylan Gabriel, who's thrown over 3,200 yards and is the Big Ten's Offensive Player of the Year. The offensive and defensive lines that continue to win games in the trenches. Brian Betcher, who leads our team in tackles. Tez Johnson, who leads our team in reception.